Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from a UPSC Civil Services examination perspective. Now today let us discuss the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 9th April 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion. Now let's take up this first news appearing on page number 9. It says no ad hoc judges in place of regular recommendations. Supreme Court Collegium should be kept in the loop. Now this particular news has been appeared in the context of a petition which has been filed in the Supreme Court with respect to appointment of additional judges on an ad hoc basis in the high courts. However, the central government has opposed this particular move and has told the Supreme Court that the appointment of additional judges on ad hoc basis in high courts under Article 224A of the Indian Constitution can be done only after filling up of regular vacancies of the high courts. However, the Supreme Court expressed concerns on the stand taken by the central government and asked the lawyers of the central government to reflect if any of the provisions under Article 224A reflected the stand of the central government. That is, whether additional judges can only be appointed on ad hoc basis under Article 224A after filling up of regular vacancies. So it is in this regard the bench, that is the Supreme Court, then asked the senior advocates representing different high courts to convene a meeting and discuss the circumstances under which ad hoc judges can be appointed under Article 224A of the Indian Constitution. So it is in this regard the Supreme Court agreed that a plan to appoint retired judges on an ad hoc basis to reduce pendency in the High Court should not become an excuse to stop or further delay the appointment process of regular judges. So here two aspects becomes important. Number one is with respect to appointment of ad hoc judges, and second is a continued process of filling up of regular vacancies. So in this regard, let us understand the constitutional provisions, especially with respect to ad hoc judges, which is provided under Article 127 of the Indian Constitution, and also provisions with respect to appointment of acting and additional judges under Article 224 of the Indian Constitution. Now this news has appeared in the context of Article 224A of the Indian Constitution, which was added by Constitution 15th Amendment. So before going into the provisions of Article 224A, let us also go through the provisions provided with respect to Article 224, especially with respect to appointment of additional and acting judges. Now this provision highlights that if by any reason of temporary increase in work, or if because of increase in pendency of cases or arrears of work, if it appears to the President that the number of judges of the court should be increased for the time being, then the President may, in consultation with the Collegium, appoint such persons who are qualified to be additional judges of the court for such period not exceeding 2 years. So this is the provision with respect to Article 224 of the Indian Constitution with respect to appointment of additional and acting judges. Now Article 224 also provides that these additional and acting judges must be duly qualified to be appointed as judge of a high court. And the qualification regarding the appointment of judge of a high court has been provided under Article 217 clause 2. It says that a person shall not be qualified for appointment as a judge of a high court unless he is a citizen of India and has for at least 10 years held a judicial office in the territory of India, or has for at least 10 years an advocate of a high court, or of 2 or more such courts in succession. So such persons must be a citizen of India and should have held a judicial office in the territory of India for at least 10 years and for the last 10 years have been an advocate of high court. So these qualifications are necessary to be appointed as additional and acting judges under Article 224 of the Indian Constitution. It further highlights that no person appointed as an additional or acting judge of a high court shall hold office after attaining the age of 62 years. So these provisions becomes important from our prelims perspective, that if additional or acting judges are appointed under Article 224 of the Indian Constitution, then they shall be appointed for a period not exceeding 2 years. And they shall also not hold that office after attaining the age of 62 years. Now regarding Article 224A, it mentions about appointment of retired judges at sittings of high courts. It says that notwithstanding anything in this chapter, the Chief Justice of the High Court may request any person who has held the office of a judge of that court or any other high court to sit and act as a judge of the high court for that state. So as per this provision, the Chief Justice, with the previous consent of the President of India, can request any person who either has held office of the judge of a high court or any other high court to sit and act as judge of that particular high court for which he will be appointed. Now these retired judges shall be entitled to such allowances as the President may by order determine. So under Article 224A, these retired judges appointed on an ad hoc basis shall be entitled to allowances as determined by the President. Further, these judges appointed under Article 224A shall have the jurisdiction, powers and privileges of that of a high court. However, they shall not be considered as judge of a high court. Another important aspect of Article 224A is the aspect of consent. That is, such person must give consent to be appointed as a judge of a high court under Article 224A. So it is with respect to Article 224A that the Supreme Court has asked the senior advocates representing different high courts to convene a meeting and discuss the circumstances under which ad hoc judges can be appointed under Article 224A. As of now, the matter is sub judice. So, the Supreme Court will again take up the matter on 15th April 2021. So, in this regard, let's wait for the final outcome of this particular judgment, especially under Article 224A. So, on this note, let us also briefly go through Article 127 and also Article 128 with respect to Supreme Court of India. Now, Article 127 clearly provides for appointment of ad hoc judges. It says that if at any time there should not be a quorum of the judges of the Supreme Court available to hold or continue any sessions of the court, then the Chief Justice of India may, with the previous consent of the President and after consultation with the Chief Justice of the High Court concerned, request in writing the attendance at the sittings of the court as an ad hoc judge for such period as may be necessary of a judge of a high court duly qualified for appointment as judge of a Supreme Court to be designated by Chief Justice of India. So, a judge of a high court can be appointed as an ad hoc judge of a Supreme Court in case the quorum of judges is not complete. However, the judge concerned of the high court must be duly qualified to be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court under Article 127 of the Indian Constitution. Now regarding the qualification to be appointed as judge of the Supreme Court, it has been provided under Article 124 Clause 3. It says that a person shall not be qualified for appointment as judge of a Supreme Court unless he is a citizen of India and has been for at least 5 years a judge of a high court or of 2 or more such courts in succession. So a person concerned must be a citizen of India and must have been a judge of a high court or 2 or more high courts for at least 5 years in succession, or such citizen of India has been for at least 10 years an advocate of a high court or 2 or more such courts in succession. So they can also be advocates of high court for 10 or more years in succession. And lastly, the citizen of India is, in the opinion of the President, a distinguished jurist. So all these are qualifications to be appointed as judge of the Supreme Court of India. So a person to be appointed under Article 127 as an ad hoc judge must fulfill these conditions. Now the provision further says that such judges appointed as ad hoc judges must give priority to attend the sittings of the Supreme Court, and for the time and period they are attending the sittings of Supreme Court shall have all the jurisdiction, powers and privileges of the Supreme Court and shall discharge the duties of a judge of a Supreme Court. So these are the provisions with respect to appointment of ad hoc judges as provided under Article 127 of the Indian Constitution. Now, the Indian Constitution under Article 128 also provides for attendance of retired judges at sittings of the Supreme Court. Now, under Article 128, the Chief Justice of India, with the previous consent of the President, may request any person who has held the office of Judge of a Supreme Court or of a Federal Court, or who has held the office of a Judge of a High Court and is duly qualified for appointment as a Judge of a Supreme Court, to sit and act as Judge of Supreme Court. And every such person appointed under Article 128 shall be entitled to such allowances as determined by the President, and these judges shall have all the jurisdictions, powers and privileges of that of a Judge of a Supreme Court, but they shall not be deemed to be a Judge of a Supreme Court. Similar provisions which we saw under Article 224A of the Indian Constitution. So again, with respect to appointment of retired judges at the sitting of Supreme Court, they would be given allowances as determined by the President. They shall have all the jurisdiction, powers and privileges of that of a Judge of a Supreme Court. However, they shall not be deemed Judge of a Supreme Court. So these are some of the important provisions regarding Article 128 and 127 of the Indian Constitution. Now all these provisions becomes important primarily from your prelims perspective, as questions can be asked in your upcoming prelims examination regarding appointment of ad hoc judges. Now this topic becomes important primarily from the perspective of constitutional provisions, and regarding these provisions questions can be asked in your prelims examination with respect to Indian polity and governance, and in the mains under GS paper 2 with respect to appointments to various constitutional posts and also important features of the Indian Constitution. So with this discussion on ad hoc judges, let's move to the next article. Now let's take up the next news appearing on page number 14. It says RBI's first purchase under G-SAP 1.0 set up for April 15. ICE securities worth 25,000 crores. Now this news highlights that the Reserve Bank of India will very soon conduct an open market purchase of government securities worth rupees 1 lakh crores under the Government Securities Acquisition Program or G-SAP 1.0 for first quarter of 2021-22. The news further says that the first purchase of these government securities for an aggregate amount of rupees 25,000 crores under G-SAP 1.0 will be conducted on 15th April 2021. So this news says that the RBI will conduct G-SEC acquisition program under the open market operation, and the overall purpose for this program is to achieve a stable and orderly evolution of yield curve. Now few aspects becomes important here from our examination perspective. One is that G-SAP is a type of open market operation, although with a distinct character as highlighted by the RBI governor. Now in this regard you must know about open market operations, as questions have been asked in the past with respect to OMO. Now OMOs or open market operations are conducted by the Reserve Bank of India by way of sale or purchase of government securities to and from the market. So the RBI either sells these government securities to the market or purchase these government securities from the market. And this is done with an objective to adjust the rupee liquidity conditions in the market. So when RBI feels that there is excess liquidity in the market, then it resorts to the selling of these government securities, thereby sucking out the rupee liquidity. So selling of government securities helps in sucking out rupee from the market, whereas purchase of these government securities ends up enhancing liquidity in the market. So it says that similarly, when the liquidity conditions are tight, RBI may buy securities from the market, thereby releasing liquidity into the market. And based on these understandings, these two questions were asked in the UPSC prelims of 2015 and 2013. The question asked in 2013 was fairly simple. It stated that in the context of Indian economy, open market operations refers to options were A. Borrowing by scheduled banks from the RBI, B. Lending commercial banks to industry and trade, C. Purchase and sale of government securities by the RBI, and D. None of the above. Now in this, the correct answer is C. That is, open market operations refers to purchase and sale of government securities by the RBI. Now this question asked in 2015 stated that with reference to Indian economy, consider the following. First, bank rate. Second, open market operations. Third, public debt. And fourth, public revenue. Question was, which of the above is our component or components of monetary policy? In this, the correct answer is bank rate and open market operations. Whereas public debt and public revenue are not part of monetary policy. So the correct answer here becomes 1 and 2. So, G-SAP 1.0 is a type of OMO or open market operations with a distinct character. As under G-SAP, there is an upfront commitment by RBI to the market that it will purchase bonds worth specific amount. Now, this is done basically to infuse money in the economy, as we have seen that purchase of government securities helps enhancing liquidity in the economy. Now, the whole purpose of this operation under G-SEC acquisition program is to stable yield curve. Now, yield here refers to the interest rate applicable on these government securities or bonds. And yield curve refers to this particular graph, where you can see that the interest rate or the yield has been depicted on the y-axis, whereas maturity period has been depicted on the x-axis. So it states that it is a line, this line, that plots the yields or interest rates of bonds or securities having equal credit quality but different maturity rates. Now, if you see this particular yield curve or interest rate curve, we see with respect to increase in maturity rates, the interest rate keeps on increasing. However, the idea of RBI is not only to stable this yield curve but also reduce the interest rate in the long term. Now it further states that the slope of the yield curve gives an idea of future interest rates changes and economic activity. So the slope of the yield curve also gives an idea with respect to future interest rate changes and also economic activity taking place in an economy. So it is here where G-SAP becomes important with respect to providing a stable and orderly evolution of yield curve. The news further states that RBI will purchase 5 government securities of different maturities amounting to Rs 25,000 crore on 15th April 2021. Thus, this news becomes important primarily from the perspective of prelims examination, and in this news you need to know about the government securities acquisition program, which is a kind of a OMO, about open market operation and also about yield curve. So this news becomes important both from our prelims and mains point of view. In the prelims gets covered under economic and social development, and in the mains under GS paper 3 with respect to issues pertaining to Indian economy. With this, let's move to the next news of discussion. Now let's take up the next article appearing on page number 6. It says, Plough to plate, hand held by the Indian state. The distinct characteristics of India's agriculture require that a reformed state must ensure farmer and consumer welfare. Now, it's generally believed that reducing the role of state will automatically deliver economic results. However, this aspect should not be applied to the field of Indian agriculture as per the author in this article. Now, this is because Indian agriculture needs state intervention. And why? Because it allows state to intervene in multiple markets of India. It encourages state to make critical investment in the field of agriculture, and all this overall ensures welfare of both farmers and the consumers. So based on this article, it highlights various issues faced by not only Indian farmers but also Indian consumers and traders. Now this article says that for Indian agriculture, economies of scale and increasing return to scale is not possible. Now, economies of scales refers to cost advantages which is reaped by investors or companies when production becomes efficient. However, for Indian agriculture, this cannot be said to be true as the production depends on number of factors. Now, increasing return to scale means that the output increases in a greater proportion than the increase in input. Now, the author argues that in both these aspects, that is, economies of scale and increasing return to scale, this aspect is not possible for the Indian agriculture in the present circumstances. Now, this is because there is uncertainty of weather, poor soil fertility, water deficiency, and falling water table, and all these cumulatively ensures that the production can never be efficient or constant in the same way for the entire country. And with respect to Indian agriculture, it is seldom the case of increasing return to scale. Now, both these aspects is not possible for Indian agriculture also because large section of the rural workers is either unskilled, or if they are farmers, they are mostly small and marginal farmers. So because of these reasons also, economies of scale and increasing return to scale is generally not possible in the field of Indian agriculture. Other reasons given by the author includes farmers are overworking for less wages and therefore are being self-exploited. There is an issue of climate change in India, as we can see aspects of droughts and floods, and both aspects of drought and floods impacts the output of the crop. Further, farmers have low per capita income to reinvest in the localized warehousing, so creating critical infrastructure is not possible only by the farmer, and therefore state intervention is necessary. It further says that crop prices are very fluctuating, at times going very high during hoarding and at times going very low during bumper output. Now, this also impacts the consumers, as because of lack of availability of certain crops, they might hoard certain crops, thereby impacting the prices of the crop concerned. It further says about high end chemical fertilizers also raise production cost for the farmers. Now, this use of fertilizer is also based on soil fertility, and soil fertility may vary across different regions in the country. Now, it also mentions about caste system. It says that caste system also plays an important role in farmers' exploitation. Further, it highlights that in the last 30 years, over 3 lakh farmers have committed suicide due to agricultural distress. Another reason provided is that production processes cannot be organized through assembly line like those of the factories with respect to Indian agriculture. And lastly, it mentions that during the period of bumper crop, prices fall and resulting rise in demand is not proportionate to increase of farmers' income. So these are the problems highlighted with respect to the side of the farmers, and it is in this regard the article says that economies of scale and increasing return to scale is not possible for Indian agriculture without state intervention. Now, the article also mentions about the problems created by traders. It says that traders in India also act as money lenders and thereby exploit farmers by charging rate of interest varying from 60% to 120%, and this overall creates a debt trap for these farmers in India. Now, debt trap means that these farmers, because of this high rate of interest, are unable to pay back their interest, and in order to pay back their interest, they have to take another loan. Now, this second loan traps them in a vicious cycle, and debt trap keeps these farmers always in debt. So, here the article says that these money lenders combine the role of input supplier, crop buyer, labor employer, and even land lesser. And since these traders help the farmers in number of occasions, hence the farmers are always in debt because of these traders as they charge high rate of interest. Now, the other issues highlighted in this article is with respect to the Indian procurement system, as it says that it is mostly cereal based. And further, it highlights that high procurement of wheat, rice, and sugar cane has distorted water security, food security, and nutrition security. So, high procurement of wheat, rice, and sugar by the government gives incentives to the farmers to grow only these crops, and thereby, in a way, also disincentivizes the farmers not to grow other crops. So, the question is that how to address the situation which is being currently faced by the Indian farmers. It says that there is a need for right kind of public investment in agriculture And here, radical investment in state capacities and qualitatively better regulatory oversight is needed. It further says to expand the basket for public procurements. And here, it means to include more cereals, include pulses, coarse cereals, millets, oil seeds, etc., as this will also help in saving groundwater, since these crops require very less groundwater as compared to wheat, rice, and sugarcane. Further, the article says that there is a need to decentralize the procurement process, where locally procured crops could be used under Anganwadi or midday meal schemes. Further, the article mentions about need to diversify the benefits of green revolution to central Indian states, eastern states, and even northeastern states of India. Next, the article says that there is a need to increase degree of capacity building and professionalism among Indian farmers, and thereby there is a need to diversify the quality of work done by the Indian farmers. Further, the article says that the government should incentivize the farmers to grow coarse cereals and millets. And according to the author, this could be a game changer as it will help to reduce malnutrition and diabetes, as these crops, that is coarse cereals and millets, will also have low glycemic index. So glycemic index is a value used to measure how much specific foods increase blood sugar levels. And accordingly, foods are classified as low, medium, or high glycemic foods and are ranked on a scale of 0 to 100. So, a crop having a rank of 55 or less is said to have a low glycemic index. A crop said to have a rank of 56 to 69 is said to have a medium glycemic index. And a crop having 70 or more value is said to have a high glycemic index. So the author says that not only that these crops will have low glycemic index, but will also provide higher content on dietary fiber, vitamins, minerals, protein, and antioxidants. Further, there is also need for higher public investment, especially with respect to agro infrastructure in pulses and millets in India. And also the article argues to provide mandis in the radius of 5 kilometers so that decentralized system could work effectively. So these are the steps which has been provided in this particular article to address the present situation faced by Indian agriculture. Now this lead article on issues faced by Indian farmers and suggested solutions in this article becomes important both from the perspective of prelims and mains examination. In the mains, it gets covered under GS paper 3 with respect to Indian economy and related issues, and also with respect to the aspect of Indian agriculture. And in the prelims gets covered under economic and social development. Now after this discussion, let's take up three important articles appearing on page number 13. Now this news appears on page number 13 and says that Biden government restores aid to Palestinians, and it includes $75 million in economic aid for the West Bank and Gaza. And it also includes $10 million for peace building programs. Now this decision becomes important because Biden's administration has reversed Trump administration's policy towards Palestine. So, the US State Department has announced the restoration of at least $235 million in financial assistance for the Palestinians. And this announcement includes $75 million in economic assistance to the West Bank and Gaza, $10 million towards peace building programs of the US Agency for International Development, and $150 million in humanitarian assistance to the UN Relief and Works Agency in the Near East, that is UNRWA. Now, the UNRWA fund would also include educational assistance for at least 5 lakh Palestinian children living in West Asia. Now, the UNRWA was established in 1949 and the United States was the largest funder of this particular agency. And this ensured that the organization was able to fulfill its UN General Assembly mandate to provide humanitarian assistance to Palestinian refugees until a just and enduring political solution to the conflict was achieved. Now in this regard, you must know about the two-state solution, as a question was also asked by UPSC in the prelims examination, and it deals with Palestine and Israel. Now let's take up another news appearing on page number 13. It says all options open on South China Sea. Now this claim has been made by Philippines as number of boats has been found close to the Spratly Islands in Whitsun Reef. So since these Chinese boats have been located around Spratly Islands in Whitsun Reef, which is claimed by Philippines, hence the Philippine government has stated that they are keeping all options open, including a diplomatic engagement with China and also, if possible, a military engagement. So, in this regard, you need to know about the location of South China Sea and also that of the Spratly Islands. Now, as you can see in this particular map, this is the Spratly Islands, and this is where Chinese ships have been spotted. Now, in this regard, the United States of America has reminded China that in case China attacks Philippines, then the US will come in support of Philippines because of the US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. So the US has reminded China of Washington's treaty obligations to the Philippines in the event of an attack in waters. The US State Department has stated that an armed attack against the Philippines armed forces, public vessels or aircraft in the Pacific, including South China Sea, will trigger US obligation under the US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. So in this news, you need to know about the US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty and also about the location of Spratly Islands, which is around the South China Sea. Now it highlights that the South China Sea Spratly Islands have been an area of ongoing territorial dispute. Now China claims most of the South China Sea, and the territorial disputes is with respect to different countries such as Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei and even Taiwan, as all these countries have made overlapping claims. So in this regard, we need to know about the location of Spratly Islands, which is close to South China Sea, and also about other islands in the South China Sea. Now the last article to discuss appears also on page number 13. It says the UK to set up £43 million fund for migrants from Hong Kong. It will offer help in accessing housing, jobs and education. Now this is because of the Britain's old ties with Hong Kong prior to 1997. As prior to 1997, Hong Kong was under British control. So in this regard, the British government has decided to set up £43 million or $59 million fund to help migrants from Hong Kong to settle in UK as they escape increasing political repression in present Hong Kong, and this increasing political repression is by China. So according to UK, the offer extends to the holders of British national overseas passports who have been offered special visas, and this special visa allow for work, residency and eventual citizenship of UK for up to 5 million of Hong Kong's 7.4 million people. So this integration program will provide funding to help arrivals in accessing housing, education and jobs in United Kingdom. Now around 10% of this fund will go towards establishing 12 virtual welcome hubs across Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and this will be done to coordinate, support and give practical advice and also assistance to the people coming back to UK. Now China has sharply criticized this step taken by the United Kingdom and said that this amounts to the British abuse of the passport, and has also warned that China will no longer recognize such passports or such travel documents as a form of identification for such persons. Now the problem here is that most residents of Hong Kong also carry Hong Kong or other passports, so it's not very clear as to what will happen next. Now this step has been taken by UK based on moral commitments to the people of Hong Kong who chose to retain their ties to UK by taking up the British national overseas status in 1997. So this news primarily becomes important from the prelims perspective. Now with respect to Hong Kong, you must remember umbrella movement, as questions can be asked with respect to the pro-democracy movement which took place in Hong Kong in the year 2014. Now all these three news appearing on page number 13 becomes important basically from the perspective of prelims examination and can be covered under current events of international importance. So after this discussion, let us revise what we have discussed today. Now today we started our discussion with this news appearing on page number 9 regarding ad hoc judges. Now in this news we discussed number of constitutional provisions including Article 224A, which was added by Constitution 15th Amendment, about Article 224 regarding appointment of additional and acting judges, regarding Article 127 regarding appointment of ad hoc judges for the Supreme Court, and Article 128 regarding attendance of retired judges at sittings of the Supreme Court. And in this regard, you must also know about the qualification for a person to be appointed as a judge of a Supreme Court, and also qualification for a person to be appointed as judge of a High Court. Now, another important aspect with respect to Article 224A regarding appointment of retired judges at sittings of High Courts, it says that the allowances for these judges will be decided by the President, and they shall have all the jurisdiction, powers and privileges of that of a High Court judge. However, they shall not be deemed to be the judge of a High Court. Moving further, we then discussed about RBI's first purchase under G-SAP, that is Government Securities Acquisition Program, and accordingly the RBI will conduct open market operation or open market purchase of government securities. Now in this regard we discussed about G-SAP, and we also discussed that how RBI through this policy aims to provide for a stable and orderly evolution of yield curve. Now here we discussed about yield curve. Yield basically refers to the interest rate of the bonds or securities, and the slope of the yield curve gives an idea of future interest rate changes and economic activity. Now RBI in the longer run aims to reduce the interest rate with respect to government securities. Now here we also discussed about open market operations, as open market operations are such market operations conducted by RBI by way of sale or purchase of government securities, and the whole objective is to adjust rupee liquidity conditions in the market. Then we discussed about this lead article appearing on page number 6. Now it stated that there is a need for state intervention, especially in the field of Indian agriculture, as it allows state to intervene in multiple markets, it encourages state to make critical investments, and overall it ensures welfare of farmers and also that of consumers. Now in this regard, this article specifically highlighted that economies of scale and increasing return to scale is not possible for Indian agriculture, and gave a number of reasons for its arguments. Further, we also discussed the issue of debt trap and other issues which is created because of the traders who deal in the agricultural sector. Further, the article also provided solutions as to how to address the problems which is being currently faced in the Indian agricultural sector. Now this article must be seen primarily from the perspective of mains examination. And lastly, we discussed these three articles primarily from the prelims perspective. The first article discussed was that the Biden administration, by reversing Trump administration policy, restores aid for Palestinians. Next, we discussed this news where it said that all options open on South China Sea for Philippines. Now in this news, you need to know about the location of Spratly Islands and Whitsun Reef, and also about a mutual defense treaty between US and Philippines, as US has warned China that in case China attacks Philippines, then US will come in aid for Philippines. And lastly, we discussed this news with respect to UK setting up £43 million fund for migrants from Hong Kong. And this is because US feels that it has moral commitment to the people of Hong Kong who had chose to retain their ties to United Kingdom by taking up the British national overseas passports. So these three news primarily must be seen from the perspective of your prelims examination, especially with respect to current events of international importance. And in this news, you must also remember about the umbrella movement, as it is associated with Hong Kong. So with this summary revision, let's take up the question for the day. Now based on our discussion, this becomes your practice question for the day. It says the term glycemic index has been in news recently. It pertains to options are A. Gender gap, B. Blood sugar, C. Heart rate, and D. Journalism. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was consider the following statements related to monetary policy framework in India. First, it has been given statutory backing under RBI Act 1934. Yes, this is correct. Second, it calls upon the government to fix the inflation target in consultation with the RBI every 5 years. Yes, this statement is also correct. So the question is, which of the statements given above are correct? So here the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So with this, we come to an end to today's discussion of daily news analysis. Thank you.